dude. A lot of them are like pretty legit. Some of them, not all of them.
No, you're well, okay, so that's here lately it's kind of not fair to call yourself to call someone a conspiracy theorist because here lately it just means you're right.
Yeah, it's kind of like. Hold on. Let's save this exact conversation for
Oh, we're
the.
already going.
Oh, cool. Okay, so
Haha, how's it feel, asshole?
all right, so this alone in itself makes so much sense because the conspiracy bullshit. Like everyone thinks, this is all conspiracy shit like that, and then exactly what you just said, it's right.
Well,
But
not all of them, but
no, no, no.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
a lot of them are coming out more correct, because like Alex Jones, a lot of the shit he was saying
well, and
was
it's not little ones either. That's why it's
that's the point because
so
they're not little freaking problems. They're giant. Epstein's Island, one of
yeah.
them.
Well, that's for me. That's the big one, and then a bunch of other stuff where they may not necessarily be correct in total, but there's enough there to make you go,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
they may not be right about this thing, whatever the thing is that we're talking about, but there's enough going on to at least make you want to look at it twice. Which, so first of all, to let everybody know, this podcast is brought to you by Stevie Wicks Cool Bean Candle Company. We'll talk about them more in a moment. And I wanted to start this podcast, which is a general. We're going to talk about them trying to ban Trump off the ballot, which they have failed spectacularly, or at least they have thus far, and they will. They're going to fail. But also kind of Trump in general. But I did want to address one thing. We uploaded, or I should say I uploaded today, a clip from our episode that we did on the actual January 6th, 2021. And I believe it's a combination of YouTube's typical nobody actually watching or paying attention to the video. And the fact I almost didn't upload that short because there's not a ton there. But I'm not going to lie, I wanted to stroke the algorithm. And the fact that we're talking about January 6th did to a certain extent. But a lot of people, oh, what did TN say in DBZ Abridged? Making a lot of assumptions right now. One of which being that I'm a Republican and a Trump supporter, which I am. I am neither. I like Trump in various ways. I dislike Trump in various ways. But
Let me clear it up for everybody. Jake likes Trump financially. That's about it.
well, no, I
And
like
policies, some policies, not all.
Trump. Trump is very much a mixed bag for me because a lot of people like. I also really like Trump on foreign policy, and I know a lot of people are scratching their heads about that. But it's like, look, Trump had probably the best marriage of isolationism and at the same time being realistic about the not economic, I'm sorry, international situation and placement of the United States, where I always saw Trump internationally as someone who said, or at least felt, as far as I could tell, he's someone who says, look, I don't want to be the world's police, but we're here. We have to do this strategically. We can't just pull out of everywhere willy-nilly. We saw what happens when you do that under Biden's withdrawal of Afghanistan, where I agree with the sentiment of we need to have an exit strategy for Afghanistan, but you cannot say with a straight face that wasn't an absolute shit show because everybody's talking about, oh, Afghanistan, we wasted 20 plus years. Well, now we did because it's right back to square one.
Yeah, exactly. If Bush, I will say this though, if Bush Senior would have stayed instead of withdrawing back in the the late '80s or early '90s,
Yeah, they're the Persian Gulf War.
if he would have stayed and took care of it then, we
Well,
wouldn't even
that was
had 9/11.
that was
Well, I mean,
Iraq, but and we're
well,
still we're
I
still
know,
in
but
Iraq, by the way.
the thing is, like, if he would have stayed there and then put the feet, because the thing is, man, like, if you don't take the head off the snake, I mean, that's just what's going to happen. Other factions are going to pop up, and I'm not saying they're all the same. And
Well,
this
no,
is
and
the
that's
conspiracy mind coming into play right
well,
now,
that's the troublesome part is they're not all the same. And when
and
you
they're not
take
all conspiracies.
well, none of those, but and when you take one out, there's a power vacuum in a region that is very, very difficult. Afghanistan historically is a region that is near impossible to successfully govern. And that has a lot to do with the fact that borders were drawn up arbitrarily by Western powers, or at least changed. And then even T.E. Lawrence in the Seven Pillars of Wisdom, he was one of the first not one of the first Westerners, but one of the first, I would say, modern Westerners to actually sort of talk about the fact that Afghanistan, you think this is a place that is easy to subjugate and control, and by virtue of its geography and sociology, it's not. Tim Kennedy talks about in his book how when they're moving from village to village, you don't know if they're pro-Taliban, anti-Taliban, indifferent, or they might be anti-Taliban and anti-United States. You just don't know until you get there, and that's very problematic when you're trying to control a nation state. But I digress because we're talking about Trump. So what?
Little Trump daddy.
Big Daddy Trump with his giant hands, his very big hands. Hands are actually normal for a man my size and age, all that. Anyway.
I would appreciate having smaller hands. It would make it look bigger.
Only from a certain angle.
Look at it.
Look at it. It's huge.
Oh my gosh. Dude. Comedy gold. It's so huge.
So huge.
I'm going back to the Barbie movie.
You know, you're Ariel's best friend. I'm so happy for you.
That was an instant classic.
Oh God, I laughed so hard.
I'm so happy for you.
But anyway, so what I had said, and I still stand by my statement, albeit it's a little bit different. Well, no, I pretty much meant it in the same way, but things have changed. What I had said at the beginning was the Republican Party will be paying for this for years to come. Now, I'm not saying it's the Republican Party's fault, at least not entirely. But the way this has been spun and the way it's been presented, whether it's legitimate or not, that part's irrelevant. The Republican Party cannot escape January 6th. They're still being... It's a catch-all for the left to always be able to point to that and say, well, look, this happened, even though there have been plenty of riots in the name of the left side of the aisle, but they just didn't, they don't get the same attention. And they should, but they don't.
I've got a little pushback on that. So the left is shrinking. Yeah, just bear with me because do you follow a guy on I think he's on YouTube. I think his name's Doc Rich, DOC Rich, RIC. He's a black gentleman, and he's very Trump 2024 and Trump in general. Anyway, he did a video displaying, like, I think it was him or somebody else. They were in Bronx, New York, and they were asking people, "Who are you? Or are you happy with the current state of the United States financially? And like, who do you want to see as president?" And like the overwhelming majority of them, I'm sorry, I can't talk. The overwhelming majority was literally like these people saying Trump, and I'm like, nobody's saying Vivek. You know, I was like, I'm starting to really like Vivek.
I still have my issues with Vivek. I mean, yeah,
I'm not saying I want him 2024, but I'm just saying, like, I really am starting to like the dude.
Oh, I like him.
That's kind of a bad thing. That's kind of a bad thing because I don't want to like you. I want to like your policies. And from what I've heard, he's got decent policies.
His policies are where I have an issue. As a person, I like him a lot. I think he's a little... This sounds bad to say because he is older than us by a little bit, but he comes off as a little bit politically naive, which is very problematic. Although, to be fair, it probably wouldn't do a lot of damage were he to be elected president, because a lot of the things he's talked about doing they wouldn't let it happen.
I think Trump may win this, and I think he's gonna ask Vivek to be his VP. I do, like, honestly, as long as they get along and everything works out, I think we would have the next 12 years being prosperous.
Oh, they'd get along because Vivek is Trump's favorite kind of person, a person who follows him around and kisses his ass. And I don't mean that. I don't mean that as a total dig to Vivek. Although we pointed out in the debate, he raised his hand up the fastest when they were like, "Would you support?" It's me. I want to be vice president.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's just showing that he's not going to be like the rest of the other fake Republicans. I'm not even going to say fake Republicans. They're Republicans, whatever they are, ass kissers. The rest of the ass kissers on stage. We're like, oh, no, I'll never be his VP, and Vivek's just like, are you kidding me?
The fuck you wouldn't. But
Exactly.
but
And
but
that's what I took that way from Vivek.
but at the same time, and this has become pretty much self-evident as far as I'm concerned, is you are not necessarily a Trump supporter if you are a Republican, and you are not necessarily a Republican if you are a Trump supporter. I said it a while back. Trump could, and it would probably, well, wouldn't be more effective for him in a general election because there are straight ticket Republicans, but Trump would have an alarming support if he just either ran as an independent or created the MAGA political party, which,
Dude, he just needs to switch back to Democrat and just fuck with people.
dude, I'll be real with you. If Trump did that, it would be the greatest troll of all time. He would take the crown.
Listen,
Because they would
go ahead.
they'd have to. They'd have to vote for him. And
Hold on. No, they wouldn't. This is exactly why I say this, because you have to play 3D chess. You can't just play chess. You have to play 3D chess. So think about it this way. So Trump runs as a Democrat. All the liberals are mad, and guess what? Well, I mean, if he's a Democrat, then that means this and that. Then they run to the Republican tickets.
well, no, but well, he first of all, Trump, even if Trump switched back to a Democrat,
that wouldn't happen. Sorry.
Well, no, he even, let's assume that he would. He wouldn't get the nomination because Biden's got the nomination, and even if it was a Democrat primary, which if there was, Trump would have no reason to.
How does Biden have the nomination? Just because he's the only Democrat?
No, because he's the incumbent.
Okay. So, yeah. I was gonna say, because I'm not very well versed in that. You know more about that than I do. But the reason I'm saying that is because if Trump runs, then they would essentially have to battle for the primary, wouldn't they? How does that work?
Because he's the incumbent president. They can have a primary, but they don't have to. The only reason you have a primary is because you don't have an incumbent candidate.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Is you're selecting your candidate to run for office. If you already have an incumbent, you don't need to hold a primary. Now, they could if they wanted to, but the DNC is not going to, because I said this at the time, there is some wisdom in leading with the championship team. Even though it may not be the best championship team ever, they still won the championship. So it does make sense to go with what worked before instead of running the risk of, which in this case, I don't think it would be much of a risk, but you wouldn't want to run the risk of, trading out your championship team when you still have your championship team.
See, everybody, this is why you have to have a friend like Jake. He knows shit.
No, I just think too much because I can't turn my brain off. But so the point I wanted to make, though, is I would like the internet to tell me where I was wrong when I said the Republicans will pay for January 6th. Or what I said, I don't see how the Republicans will ever recover from January 6th. Now, obviously, after about 50 or 60 years, they'll still talk about it. Trust me. The Democrats are not going to let this go. Because we still give Dixiecrats shit for stuff that happened post-Civil War. And we still give them grief for Jim Crow, although that gets blamed on Republicans somehow.
The good thing about today is we have cameras with evidence and videos. So therefore, like, any of the evidence, if anyone wants to see it, after we get past all this fucking censorship, once we get past all this censorship and the truth comes out, because how long have they had all these tapes, of the January 6th?
Well, and so this ties into what I was talking about before, where
I saw the video. I'll go into it after you can tell what you're talking about.
So, and this is another thing I had with some of the comments is, okay, real talk. January 6th was not what was presented on CNN. There was more going on. But at the same time, I watched people do this shit in real time. It was a live video feed. And everybody in the comments saying like, well, yeah, the only people who were breaking in were wearing masks. No, there weren't. You can go back and watch it. There are plenty of people. There are plenty of people with masks. There are plenty of people without masks, including the guy in the clip I used. The guy who actually smashed the window turns, and he's clearly not wearing a mask. And there are plenty of people that were caught making violent threats. Now, again, I'm gonna err on the side of caution and assume they were hyperbolic, but they said these things. And they did these things. And they kicked in doors and smashed his windows and hit police officers and all that. These people exist. Now, does that mean everyone there did that? Of course not. We've seen video evidence to the contrary. There are multiple entrances. Some violent stuff happened there. And that part is not okay. But at the same time, as Tucker Carlson blew the lid off, there were other places where no violence was happening and people were being welcomed in. So this is not a cut and dry issue. But let's also remember, why were a lot of people, the people who were storming and breaking into the Capitol, why were they doing that?
Well, I'm not gonna say why they were doing that, but the thing is, like,
well, they said why
the,
they were doing that.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, going into this is where the conspiracy all comes in, because the thing is, Antifa is alive and well, and it's not hard to put on a MAGA hat and pretend to be someone else, even if your face comes out, because these people don't care. You know. Now the thing is, that video that you were talking about with that guy smashing the window, have you ever seen anything about him being identified and who he is, and anything past that? Because the thing is, if we can't confirm who he is from the small video, that's irrefutable. That's not evidence.
I do not know.
You get what I'm saying?
Well, yes, but at the same time, you have to remember there are several hundred cases.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not saying like people weren't like actually being violent, because I'm sorry, out of 100 people, at least one of them is going to be an asshole.
Well, and not only
happens.
Not only this is a point I was thinking of when I was driving home. It's like let's
kind of like Stifler. I'm your asshole.
I'm your ass. So let's assume for a moment that the Antifa. I'm not even going to call it conspiracy. Let's assume for a moment that the Antifa hypothesis is correct, and that the people who incited all the violence were in fact covert Antifa.
Oh, also undercover police, because some of them did show badges in videos,
right?
And they were within the crowd, so we can't. And they were wearing MAGA hats.
Right. So
I only saw one of that. Just to be clear.
That's irrelevant to my overall point. So let's assume that the Antifa hypothesis is correct across the board. And then
details matter.
Well, no. Here's the point, though. If a member of Antifa, or if anyone for that matter, if anybody said, "Hey, punch the president in the," well, that's a bad example. If that's a real bad example. So let's assume that you're in the middle of a political protest and some asshole just yells, "Hey, let's go hit all the black people." Are you going to follow them?
A lot of them would.
But that's my point. So
and that makes stupid people. It doesn't make them
necessarily
evil, but
dumb people being led down a path does not absolve the dumb people of their action, because they decide to participate. That's my point.
No, absolutely, because just like all the riots during all the Antifa riots, and and the what was it, CNN or MSNBC? They're like, yeah, we're this mostly peaceful crowd, while there's fucking flames.
There was actual flames.
There was actual flames, and he said mostly peaceful. It's like, are you fucking like kidding me right now? Like,
which that's a good point, and I trust me, it's not lost on me. That double standard is very real. Now, just because I don't condone the violent actions that happened on January 6th does not mean that I don't recognize the obvious double standard. Because funny thing about me, and I don't know how many of you are like this too, when I watch the news, I watch it objectively. So when I see violence happening in Wisconsin, I go, wow, that's a shit show. And that's bad. They shouldn't be doing this. The same way when I see a bunch of people climbing up the side of the Capitol building and kicking and busting down doors and breaking windows to get in, and I say, wow, that's crazy. That shouldn't be happening.
I don't know, man. Like, all right, listen, if you really want to get to it, we're the world's biggest militia. So therefore, and the militia is probably, what percentage would you say of that militia is conservative? Of a guess. Obviously, we can't be for sure.
What militia are you talking about?
America.
Just
We're
in
the biggest
general.
militia in the world.
Of the militia, I would wager to say it's more than
70%
it's over.
conservative.
Yeah, conservative estimate would be 70-75%.
Because you got to think most liberals, they're anti-gun.
Well, do you count Antifa as part of a militia of the militia
No,
diaspora?
I would count them more as a terrorist organization because they're politically motivated.
But technically speaking, the militia is just anyone in the United States
Who has a gun?
that is armed. I
Yes.
see. I extend that past guns even if you have weapons. But let's assume gun. Let's assume gun.
Okay. So anyway, so we're the world's biggest militia. So therefore, do you think all those people at the Capitol, like insurrection wise, let's just talk about the insurrection. They're really going to try to overthrow a government without guns? Obviously.
Yes, I think some of them thought, because here's the thing, a lot
This is my thought process, dude. They're not like this is why I think there was plants, because like you were talking about the Antifa riots, they were actually rioting because like they were, like how do I word this?
you'd have to pick your riot.
Pretty much.
There were a lot. Well, I mean, so let's look at Antifa. So they I think it was in Wisconsin where they broke into the courthouse. That was Wisconsin, right?
Yeah,
I think so.
There's been so many with them, it's like, okay.
Well, but by kind of a riot by its definition is kind of like, I usually can't see the aim of it other than just general frustration coming out, which is why I personally don't go to protests, because those things can turn sideways real quick. Emotions are running high, and unfortunately a lot of people can't control themselves when they get upset, and it's a problem. I don't want to be in a place where I end up getting cornered like Kyle Rittenhouse. I don't want to be in that situation, so I don't go to Kenosha.
Just exactly like Johnny Lawrence said.
No, be
Don't
there.
be there. No, be there. Yeah, dude, that was like hands down. But at the same time, like I understand why Kyle was there. The Rittenhouse kid. It was literally where he worked day in and day out. Well, not day in and day out, but when he lived there, he lived like what, 15 minutes from there, and it was across the state line, and he worked there.
Yeah,
which is kind of weird, but I mean,
if you
control
live
where you live.
If you live on a border, it's very common. Like,
exactly. So therefore, he's there, and then on top of that, he's had training with guns, obviously, because of the dude, had a couple decent shots. Just let's just say that,
Yeah. Well, I mean, case in point, like if you live in Merrillville, Indiana,
kid catchers gone, it's all good.
Yeah, if you live in Merrillville, Indiana, you drive to Chicago, not Indianapolis.
Exactly.
It's across the state line, but you're closer to Chicago.
But regardless, as a parent, you're not 18. I am responsible for you, so no, sit your ass down and stay home.
Yeah.
I mean, there was plenty of things that we probably, in when we were kids, we would like to go to when we were younger, but our parents were like, no, and obviously they weren't like protests or anything like that. But I mean, obviously if we were politically driven like these kids today.
Well, but that's just it. See, I think there's this, and it's the fault of the adults. There's this really odd thing, which is it's not new, because political activism amongst the young has pretty much always been a thing. I would really like to see a world where we teach the ability to think critically before we teach ideology, because but then you can't bring in people to your ideology, because this is every ideology. If you think about it, then you can find the issues, which is why I'm not 100% Trump, because Trump has issues. Every candidate has issues.
You should never be 100% any person who's running for president, because the thing is, you're always going to find something. I mean, not that you can't be 100%, but you're always going to find something you don't like. You have to weigh what you don't like versus what you like.
Well, and you also you can't conflate someone being a better choice between two choices at the time versus identifying with that person, because I'll be honest, in a vacuum, there's not a lot about Trump that I'm like, yes, this is the best path forward. Mm-hmm. Comparatively speaking to like a Hillary Clinton, absolutely the best path forward compared to those two. But it wasn't even my choice. I found the other third-party candidate to be more in line with me in total. But even then, I had problems with that candidate. I vote for whoever I had the least amount of problems and the most agreement with.
Right. I want to touch back on the children and why they're being targeted politically because you mentioned that, and to be honest with you, I can tell you why right now.
Well, yeah.
Because whatever they do, like if they say something, like say like a 12-year-old is told to like parrot something, because at the end of the day, they don't have a political opinion. They're being forced into a political opinion because they don't give a shit about that. Like, and if they do, it's like they've been brainwashed
Well, they
into.
don't know. They don't. They
Exactly.
haven't
They
been. Yeah.
and this is actually an issue with not all religions, but like any religion. Oh yeah, well, fuck it. Everyone's getting burned tonight. All religions, I have a problem with age of understanding, because the thing is, like, and this goes with political ideologies, even beliefs, because the thing is, age of understanding matters a lot, because you could tell a person that they could be saved by Jesus Christ by, you know, accepting him, but a kid at 5 years old is not going to fully understand that. They're not going to fully understand why they should be for Donald Trump or Biden. They're not going to understand that. So, but the thing is, you can't be an asshole to a kid. I mean, you can, but like if a kid says something like that, and then a bunch of kids start saying stuff like this, and then they create a new wave of Democratic voters.
Right,
That
but that's
18 are so fucking brainwashed, and they're going to college, and they're sitting on campuses, literally talking to like Crowder and shit like that, saying how bad capitalism is when they're in a fucking Ivy League school, and mommy and daddy paid for it. No, they didn't work for it, and then they want taxpayers to pay their child. Oh my gosh, they're fucking. My gummies are starting to kick in. Give me a second. Okay, so they want them to pay their tuition. Like, and I say they, and I mean taxpayers. So,
well
the kids.
that to me is
They become voters.
well, because you can't blame the kid because the kid's only doing what they've been taught. I blame the people who are responsible for teaching the kids, which is why I'm a big fan of teaching, not necessarily ideology. You teach, what's the word I'm looking for? You teach skills before you teach facts.
Right.
So okay, here's a perfect example. So when you're super young, what's one of the first things you learn in a school environment? You learn how to read. You have to learn how to read before you're taught what to read.
Right.
So and it's probably done intentionally to a certain extent, but when you have young children, and you have to watch it because sometimes the average human is just not capable of certain things at certain ages. I forget what age. I think it's about 14 years old before 12 or 14. I think it might be 12 before a child becomes proficient at being able to think about abstract concepts. Prior to that, on average, it's just not possible. You have to use something that they understand and know to sort of help explain a more complex thing.
What age did you say?
I think it's 12 or 14.
Damn, man. Like, did we just have like overdeveloped brains?
Well, no, I would wager to say we probably couldn't understand. Okay, so
I feel like I understood a lot of stuff from being just young. I don't know if it was probably the the way I had to grow up or whatnot, but
well, probably not abstract in the sense that you would probably be able to understand a new concept, but by relating it to something that you already knew and understood. So, for example, like when you start teaching kids about genealogy, you don't go into genetic markers and hereditary traits. You go into a family tree. So you take a concept, or a family web or whatever, you take a concept that they know and then you attribute it in a different way. But since they have that concrete understanding of the base, they can then form the connections. It's not like when you start talking about, something abstract like
you mansplain it.
yeah.
Do you know what the definition of mansplaining is? Just taking a complicated thing and making it easy and simple to understand.
Really? Is that the
No, I don't. I mean, it's a made up word, so there's no technical definition. But in the whatever dictionary, I can't remember what you call it, where it has made up words and they have made up definitions.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's a better example. Barring extremely gifted children, you don't start teaching kids about imaginary numbers and variables until a certain age, around 13, 14, unless they're exceptionally gifted, which is that's an oddity. That's not a norm. Like, you can't, I would wager to say your average fourth grader, they're not going to be able to understand algebra in concept, but they're too busy learning the steps that you need in order to perform algebra, because you need the foundation first.
Fuck algebra.
No, it's funny. Algebra. I think the reason a lot of people dislike math in school, particularly algebra and higher math, is because of how it's taught. I use algebra every single day. I just don't think about it as algebra. Almost everybody uses algebra in a everyday occurrence.
Any problem that you're literally looking for a solution, no matter what,
You're using algebra.
using algebra.
If you have a value that you don't know, if you have a thing that you don't know the value of, you're using algebra to find that value, generally speaking. On a fixed value. If it's a moving value, you're using calculus, which I'm not even.
The powerhouse of the cell. I'm just like, listen, most of the shit you do learn in school, I'm sorry, at one given point, you are going to reiterate it in your life, and you're probably going to be like, I actually remember that. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever figured the percentage of a sail off? Well, guess what? You just did a proportional equation.
Dude.
Which is algebra, by the way.
Like, my wife, she didn't know that, like, if you're trying to find, like, the tax of something or something like that, like, you take the price time, say your sales tax is 7%, you take it times 1.07.
Yeah, because you're adding 7%. But
yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of people will take it times 0.07 and then try to add it. I'm like, you're doing more work than you have to.
Well, but that's the fault of the education system, because we had to show our work. Now,
dude, that's exactly the way I did it until I decided to start doing that on my own.
Well, right, that's what I'm saying. So I think you could take that. Like, obviously, I get the school wants you to be able to understand how the equation works, but once you get proficient at that, then the teacher can be like, okay, here's how we do it in the real world, so that you do not waste time.
I obviously, you know this, but I have a child. He is 7 years old and he's in school. He's in second grade, and he literally brings home homework. And I shit you not, it's like 25 plus 14, and they want him to literally break each number down into smaller numbers like this, and then smaller numbers underneath, and then do this, and it says show your work. And I'm just like, why am I using a quarter of a page for one problem? This isn't calculus.
Well, especially when those Arabic numerals were designed to be able to count using the number itself. They were designed to have there's a reason the number 5, the way we write it, has 5 points.
Exactly. It's not meant to be broken down into 2 and 3,
no.
And then you do other smaller problems. And I mean, you can get to the same answer, but it's just unnecessary.
It's too much.
Confusing to a child.
But unfortunately, and this goes back to the Bush era with the No Child Left Behind Act, we, instead of trying to change the way we teach kids to try to help those that were further behind catch up, we effectively ended up dumbing everything down because we didn't want to leave anybody behind. But then the gifted students, or the students who were even proficient, average, suffered because we spent so much time in remediation when it wasn't necessary. That
the average intelligence?
Yes. We're what you call the bastion of mediocrity. Damn it, I wore the wrong shirt. Shit. Okay, next week I got a surprise for everybody. Because I got a great Christmas gift, and I'll show it to you when we stop recording, because you'll appreciate it. But oh shit, I should have worn that. I was wondering, so I just wore one of ours.
Kiss my ass. Oh, you changed it.
Yeah, I did.
You told me that.
Well, I asked if we should, and you were like, I don't know, but yeah, because
you asked.
I asked.
No, you asked.
I asked. Yes, I asked you.
Kiss my ass.
Oh, but Donald. So yeah, we should talk about the ballots.
Yeah, so Colorado removed him and then had to put him back on. Well, did you hear what the Colorado?
So well, hang on, because there was something I missed. So fill in the blank here. So Colorado Supreme Court voted, I believe it was 4-3, to remove Trump from the state primary ballot. That decision was stayed by a lower court until either I forget what the stipulation was. Either the Supreme Court could rule on it or a lower court could. But then the Supreme Court agreed to take on the case, and now that's where I'm unclear. Did they just say screw it and he's back on the ballot, or does the Supreme Court still need to hear the case?
Well, I mean, if you want to get to it in court terms, because you're speaking legalities, you kind of can't take someone off unless they've been
Correct. So he hasn't technically been taken
actually,
off.
A guilty verdict for the thing that they are trying to take him off the ballot for. And the funny thing is, he can keep pushing that out and out and out and out, because that's the great thing about the justice system is you can appeal the fuck out of something for years to come.
Well,
Because
not
they don't have any
entirely.
evidence. Well, I mean, the thing is, unless they have sufficient evidence and they say, well, okay, well, then we'll postpone this until a certain day, and they
Yeah.
try to find more evidence. But I'm definitely pulling to Trump right now. You asked me a question. I'm not even answering the question. What was the
Listen,
question?
it's about things and stuff and things that they said, things that I said. No, so where it is now is the decision has been stayed until the U.S. Supreme Court can rule on it. I believe that's where it's at, unless they
Okay.
just said screw it.
Okay. So then what I was rambling on about, I mean, like I said, you kind of got to have a case in order to remove him from the ballot. But somebody, who was it in Colorado? They literally said they're only running Joe Biden on the primary. And it's like, no, that defeats the whole purpose of an open and honest election.
Well, no, they would still run a Republican primary. Just Donald Trump wouldn't be on it.
Apparently, like, okay, but regardless, why isn't he on it?
Well, they're alleging that because he committed an act of insurrection against the United States, which
You
you
gotta
would.
have a verdict in order to say that. And
So
this is the thing, because this is a hefty fucking lawsuit. On top of that, it's treasonous, in my opinion.
well, it's certainly anti-democratic, which is ironic because if you've paid attention over the last few years, the
Fuck
left.
democracy.
Well,
We're a
no,
republic.
well, I mean, democracy in practice.
I know, I'm just joking.
But it's funny because the left is doing everything they accused of Donald Trump of doing, and they're doing it better. Like they're
They
doing it
literally-
bigger.
Dude, the Democrats literally fucking revived the word fascism in largely, and they're doing everything that literally is fascism. And it's like the fact that you guys don't see this is so laughable. It's not even funny. Like it makes me sick to my stomach how dumb these people are.
Well, they're
And
not
then they just
even.
they're fed shit and they say thank you.
Well, they're not even dumb though. They're willfully ignorant.
Ignorant. That's okay, but still, because the thing is all in the name of hating Trump. That's all it is.
And that's my biggest. Which, to be fair, the
'Cause
right.
they're told to hate him.
Well, my biggest annoyance when it comes to politics is not necessarily rules for thee, not for me. It's my ideology is more important than not the law. What am I trying to?
Dude, the Democrats are literally boo-foo.
Well, no,
Remember
Republicans.
FUBU and all that bullshit?
Boof.
Boo-foo. They are by us. Fuck you.
What am I trying to say? So, and I will say the left is a little bit more guilty of this lately, but the right has definitely done it before, especially the extreme right. But yes, you can say whatever you want. You have freedom of speech, unless we don't like it, in which case then you should be silenced. That's not how it works. And I would just like to point out, if you haven't read this book already, people, you should read it, because one of the I call it a running gag, even though it's satire, but it's not funny, but it is so there are the laws of the animals. I forget what they actually call them, but one of them is all animals are equal, and periodically through the story they go in and change it in the night and gaslight all the animals into, no, that's how it's always been, because I think the first change is, I can't remember, but it's not just that one either. But anyway, by the end, it ends up being all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And it's like, it's already been written for you. They called it good. That's a critique of the Soviet Union, but I mean, it's true. So could you imagine if let's assume that Donald Trump was president right now, and
I wouldn't be selling my house and moving.
this is true. Actually, I don't know. You might be. I mean, a free.
Well, I didn't realize how. Have I told my story
No.
about the homeless person?
Oh, you told it to me, but
But I didn't tell it on here.
no.
Okay, so I've talked about this on the podcast before. I do DoorDash, Instacart, Spark, anything basically to make money without having to work a W-2. Anyway, so I was literally out in a parking lot one day, literally just minding my own business. And this parking lot it was a Target parking lot, and I was further out towards the road, which there is a sidewalk by, and I'm just parked near the sidewalk, listening to my music and minding my own business. Well, this homeless guy, which at first I was like, I have no problem with that, but he literally, kind of interrupts me. I'm sitting there vibing out with my music, and he's just like bending over on the sidewalk saying, hey Bubby, and I'm just like, I literally roll down my window, and I'm just like, yeah, what's up? And he's just like, hey, you got any money? I was like, man, I'm sorry, I'm out here working for myself too, man. And he's just, I mean, dude, is it because, or no, he didn't say anything like that. He literally said something rude, and I was like, what'd you say? And I was like, I told him, he called me cheap or something like that. And then I said, dude, get the fuck out of here. And then he called me a homophobe. And I'm like, huh? I literally was so confused. I was like, why would you call me that? I was like, I didn't know you were gay. And then, I kind of chased him off.
Yeah.
In the nicest way possible. But yeah, that was fun. I don't know where I was going with that.
I don't either. You said something about a Trump were president, you wouldn't have to be selling your house.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this city I live in, I don't like it anymore. It's overrun by homelessness and liberalism. And
Yeah.
I don't even really have a big issue with liberalism, but honestly, like, it's getting kind of shitty here. So
Yeah. Well, but you know what the good news is? Valentine's Day is right around the corner. That's not good news, but bear with me. I'm doing a bit. And what happens every year for Valentine's Day when you have a significant other or a wife?
You get your yearly booty.
But how do you pay? How do you pay for your yearly booty?
With candles.
With Valentine's Day candles. I highly recommend the Little Piece of My Heart set because chicks love it. Because listen here, we're talking to the guys here. Is get your lady a little piece of my heart and say, see, you're the big heart and I'm the little heart, and we go together like all that stuff. Or if you're a nicer husband or boyfriend, otherwise known as now you're not a simp. You're a wonderful man. You're a wonderful man who loves your woman. You can get her one of the big Valentine's Day 3-wick candles. This particular one, Hot Fudge Brownie, is a lot stronger than you'd think it would be. But they are all available on StevieWicks.com right now. And if you don't have a significant other but still want to get something for one of your gal pals, you can get her the Galentine's Day candle, which that was a hit. Instead of the heart, it has a high heel on it. So for all you ladies that have a Sex in the City marathon on Valentine's Day with your gal pals, you can get them a Galentine's Day candle. Did that come off as condescending? I didn't mean it to, but it sounded it.
Nah, you're good.
I really didn't mean it to be. Anyway.
Your gal pals.
No, I mean the Sex in the City marathon. I meant it to be funny, but I feel like it came off a little condescending. Oh well. Sorry, not sorry. We all make mistakes. Some of you voted for Hillary Clinton. We all make mistakes. But if you use promo code AIP at checkout, you get 10% off your order. So get your Valentine's Day gift early, get it taken care of, and get it for cheaper. So save some dough so you can get that ass dough. That was bad. That was really bad.
No, that was bad. But that was really funny.
It was really bad.
So you can get that ass dough, dude. Okay.
Because I was trying to use dough, but I'm like, wait, they don't say dough for cake. I should have said cake.
No,
damn. Okay. No,
that was
no.
funny because that ass or that ass though. Like that's a term.
Yeah, I know, but
That ass though.
I should have said save that go so you can get that kid.
Yeah. Hey, it's all good.
It's
That
all
was
good.
funny. That was funny. I don't care what you say. That was funny.
It made you
I'm
laugh.
laughing. It did.
I'm laughing.
We are laughing.
Oh, but then going back to Trump is Maine's, which I had a bigger problem with Maine because with Colorado, at least the Colorado Supreme Court voted on it. Maine, the Secretary of State just said, I don't want him on the ballot. I'm like, tell me you have way too much power without telling me you have way too much power. Like,
Yeah,
without saying.
it doesn't work that way though because like they have all the well, what are they within the state, each state,
The electors.
the electors. I'm assuming if because they all represent districts, I believe. I think that's how that works, or however it works, and then like so their votes. It doesn't work that way. Like you can't just say someone is not allowed to be on it.
Well,
Unless you have
apparently,
irrefutable evidence of something that disqualifies.
well, apparently she can, but it has to be confirmed by the circuit court or the electors, which
Yeah, so that's why I'm not worried about these other states trying to say they're not putting them on there. I'm just like, you're going to have to, and then you're probably going to be voted out of your spot. That's all you fucking idiots are doing is trying to save your fucking seats. You're done.
but not even though, because everybody who was talking about the whole the plot that sparked January 6th to begin with, which Trump has been federally indicted for, I might remind everyone. Everybody's
but
saying
no verdict.
well, yeah, not yet, but that's not the point. He's been indicted.
Not ever. Just we'll go. With
He's been indicted. But my point is, everybody's saying, listen, you should have just taken the loss. Okay, take the loss.
taking what loss?
Trump should have taken his loss. Just like there are still people saying that Hillary Clinton got the election stolen because of Russian interference, but they don't talk about that 4 years later.
Supposedly because the Russian interference was actually for.
Yeah, which there's been a lot more that's come out about that.
There's some evidence coming out about that, and it's literally not for Trump. And it's like he won then, even with that, and then he lost in 2020. So either they figured out how to do it better with Biden, or Trump really did lose the election, which, I mean, in all honest opinion, I mean, at this given moment, he did.
It's also
until I have evidence that tells me otherwise.
It's also irrelevant at this point because
exactly.
This would be the advice I'd give to Trump. It's like, listen, okay, let's assume for the sake of argument, let's assume that the 2020 election was stolen from you. It's too late. It's an election year now. Your priority should be winning 2024, not proving that you won 2020 because it's too late for that.
The only thing I have to argue about that is simply just because if they were able to do it then, when they need to find out why and how it happened, so it can't happen again. That's the reason everyone needs to go about this and actually get it done. Because that's a problem. Everyone will bring up a problem, and yet they'll get nothing fucking done about it. And that's Republicans. I'm talking to you guys.
Yeah.
If you have problems within your government, fix it. It's not that difficult. I mean, it is. Just saying, but it's not that difficult to get everyone at least together on the same page and try to get it fixed.
Well, and the thing of it is, if Trump would not get in his own way, like Trump is very good at doing, you're running against Joe Biden, a candidate who should not win in any way, shape, or form.
I'm starting to think that I've heard you say this, and I agreed with you for the most part. But like when you're saying he gets in his own way, I'm starting to think that it really wasn't necessarily like that. I'm thinking at any
no. I'm not
he
saying
had to change what he was. No. I'm not saying that I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. But like basically what I'm saying is like at every given moment he always had opposition. And he never had anyone's full support. Like everyone said, he had full Republican support his first term, and his first half of the term during the all Republican Congress. He didn't have full support. That's why they didn't get shit done.
Exactly. Yeah, but
so if he would have had full support, then a lot of shit could have gotten changed. Who knows if it was for the better? Because maybe for the first 2 years, Trump was in it for himself, and then literally found out there was so much, corruption within our own government, and he's like, okay, well, maybe I'll actually try to do my job.
I think
I
it's
don't know
the
if that's true or
opposite. I think he might have seen where he really couldn't, or at the very least, not in his first term, because he was going to piss off. And this is the one thing I don't love about the United States political system. Trump's mission, if it really was to drain the swamp, it's not going to happen in 4 years. It's not even really going to make market progress in 8 years. But
it also wouldn't take place anyway because they can easily, like you and I have said before, anyone can be bought.
yeah, but yeah, well, I mean, there are things you can do. We've talked about some of them, but
Sorry, I
that's
say anyone, not every.
yeah.
I'm sorry, I meant to say most, not all.
So what I mean by when Trump gets in his own way, because I agree, and I said this. You can go back and find it if you're so inclined. I said that from day one, even announcing his running for president in 2015, the media decided he was Satan. So Trump, in my opinion, and I think factually, never really got a fair chance to show what he had because he spent most of his time just defending himself from the media onslaught.
Dude,
But
imagine if the media actually came out in favor of him in 2016 when he was running.
oh shit,
Imagine,
we'd have we'd have flying electric cars.
I mean, like why? Come on, man. Like, America's the biggest business in the world. I honestly, at this point, I would rather have a business person, and that includes Vivek or anybody else. I would rather have a business person running the United States simply just because what do business people do? I'm talking high profile business people do. They literally go overseas and talk to other countries about selling and buying. So therefore, they have relations with these people. What do relations do with other freaking countries? Oh, well, I mean, if you bring politics in it, it makes everything better. As long as you have good relations, I should say that. But, Ukraine and, Russia, they can't really do that right now.
Well, they could theoretically if there were different people in charge.
Well, yeah, of course.
Arguably.
If one's an evil dictator and one's the president of Russia.
Oh come on! I wouldn't. Zelensky.
I'm totally joking on that.
I know. Actually, I think Zelensky would laugh at that joke, because it's a good joke. But in spite of all that, which is true, Trump gives them ammunition.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
but then gets mad about it when he. So, for example, the whole like this is how I piss off both sides. I 100% agree that Trump being prosecuted for most of the things he's being prosecuted for are either not true or at the very least, like, yes, he may have done something wrong, but the other side is never held to account in the same way. So it's at the very least a double standard. But at the same time, I'll use the classified documents case. So Trump is, I believe, being unfairly judged for what he did, but he did do it.
No way.
But that's my point, is he did do it. So all that does is give ammunition to the left, because when somebody like you and I point out and say, well, yeah, but what about Hillary Clinton? They're like, well, Hillary Clinton never got indicted. And then you just go down into a rabbit hole. But they can always lean back on.
She didn't get indicted because she got lucky.
Well, no,
Who
she
the fuck
didn't.
deletes shit off of a private server, that's government, and gets away with it. Like, how?
Hillary Clinton, that's who. But I mean,
Exactly.
that's my point. So held to the same standard, like, honestly, if a Democrat had done everything the way Trump had done it, they wouldn't be in court. I guarantee you. Or at the very least, not to the same level of scrutiny. It would be settled, hushed, blah, blah, blah. Now, granted, Trump is his own worst enemy in that case, because the National Archives did give him several occasions to just turn over documents, and that would be it. But they kept suspecting, and they had evidence too, and they have found a lot of evidence to at least suggest, well, in that case, the evidence, assuming that the evidence is legitimate, which the only reason I'm saying that is because I haven't seen it, so
I was
now I
gonna
have
say,
seen it.
how long has it been since they collected those documents from the?
Well, that case is ongoing. That's more waiting than anything. But
sure, but how long has it been? At least well over 2 years.
no, not quite. Some of it they only found
Close
last
to?
year.
Only last year.
Well,
Well, it's been a year with evidence,
2022.
and they can't go through at least some of that in a year and find something to actually indict him for.
Well, they
Because
did.
I'm oh well, what was it? Because remember
the
we read the whole
classified
thing,
the
and
classified documents
there
case.
wasn't really a whole lot in there to actually
No, there was a fair whack, and they have him on tape saying, "Look at this! I could have declassified it when I was president, but I didn't. So this is top secret." Like that's the case I'm talking about. There are other indictments where I don't think they have a lot. I'm talking
Well, what was
specifically.
the actual paper? Does anyone know what he was talking about and what papers that well, actually, like I said, we went over it. The shit that they tried to indict him for in the what was it? The discovery or what was it?
I think you're confusing two different indictments because
Potentially.
we went through, I'm talking about the classified documents case in Florida. I think the one you're remembering is when we were talking about the Georgia indictment for conspiracy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing is, we don't have any proof of documents whatsoever.
Nothing that you can tie directly to Trump as far outside of a conspiracy, which is why they're going for a conspiracy charge.
Okay, so a year later and nothing, no evidence, no, okay.
Well, no, because that's why they're trying to tie it to conspiracy, because you can't attribute anything directly to Trump beyond a reasonable doubt, which you need for a criminal conviction.
Well, it would be just the documents at his house, correct?
Well, okay, so the classified, that's totally different. They pretty well have him on the classified documents. Now the question is, to what?
If they're going to take that precedent and actually charge him with that, then they need to charge every single president.
Well, they've charged him with it, but
except Hoover, or no, who did you say? Coolidge?
Calvin Coolidge, yeah.
Calvin Coolidge.
Somebody thought they got me on TikTok about that one too. And I'll be honest, they almost did for a second because I completely forgot about what they brought up. But then I was like, no, that doesn't. I honestly, the only reason I was able to defend my point is because I thought that really doesn't sound like something Calvin Coolidge would do. So I looked it up, and it turns out, yeah. So for those who don't know, somebody commented. I said Calvin Coolidge really doesn't have any skeletons in his closet per se, and then somebody says, wasn't he behind the poisoning of alcohol during Prohibition? And I was like, oh shit, I forgot about that. And I'm like, yeah, that was Coolidge's administration, wasn't it? But then I thought to myself, I said, you know what? That doesn't sound like something Coolidge would do, at least not intentionally. So it turns out, like most things, there's some nuance to that. So yes, the federal government did raise the level of toxic chemicals in alcohol, but only industrial alcohol that was never ever it was never going to be made for human consumption. However, bootleggers were stealing it, and then what's the I forget the technical term for what they do to make it drinkable, and it was all labeled toxic, this, that, and the other. There's another term to make alcohol that isn't drinkable. I think distilling. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, you're right. Distilling. But they made it to where even distilling, they made it so toxic that even the distillation process was still fatal. And a bunch of people died on Christmas Eve in New York City.
Damn.
Well, but the thing of it is,
Christmas.
yeah. Well, everybody wanted to blame the government, and the government's like, look, this was marked toxic. It was never meant for human consumption, and it's illegal. So if you want to blame somebody, blame the bootleggers who knew it was toxic and said, fuck it, we'll sell it to people anyway. Now they stopped doing that. So I guess I gave it, because it was a woman who commented, or at least I think it was. I even gave her the benefit of the doubt, and I said, short answer is yes, but not really. There's more nuance to it. So yeah, everybody but Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge never did a bad thing in his life.
I can't get Calvin Coolidge out. What would Calvin Coolidge do if he were here right now? He'd probably kick an ass or two. That's what Calvin Coolidge would do.
Well, he'd just say, keep the government out of it. But
oh, you sons of bitches.
Sons of bitches.
Pieces. It's Jennifer Lopez, you motherfuckers.
Oh my god. By the way, I found out I've been misquoting A Christmas Story my entire life until last year.
What did you say? And then let me see if I can correct it and make sure I'm
Well,
correct.
I know this is incorrect. So when
Just do whatever you would say.
when the dogs come in and destroy the turkey, and the dad discovers them and chases them out of the house.
You sons of bitches!
But what does he say after that?
Oh, he says, "You sons of bitches." Hold on, because it's kind of muffled.
Yeah, it's
Right?
very muffled.
You sons you know, the thing is, I can't even remember what he says because
For years, my entire life, I thought he said Papa says. That's not what he says. He says bumpuses
yeah, okay, okay,
because
I
it's the
remember that.
neighbors. And I
You thought he said
never,
Papa says? That's
yeah,
hilarious.
that's what it sounds like though. But I
Papa
never,
says,
sons of bitches, Papa
dude.
says.
That's a hell of a fucking misheard lyric.
Well, no, I think a lot of
Misheard
people,
quote.
but I never once thought to watch that movie with subtitles on because it's in English. And then I finally did because I'm like, I want to know what he says. And then I
Bumpus.
was just like, Bumpus, because they're the Bumpus's dogs.
Dude, like there's a lot of like words that like became like insults. Like the word Nimrod, that was a name in biblical times.
Yep.
You know? But
Roman,
now people use it to call people stupid.
which doesn't really make a lot of sense.
No.
I
Just
remember
because it
reading that
sounds
it was
like
like
Nimrod.
Emperor Nimrod. He's like, I was actually a very wise and effective ruler.
He was a virgin. No, just kidding.
No, that's his cousin Nimblrod.
Nimble Rod. I got a thin dick. Do you remember that off Deuce Bigelow? Oh my gosh, dude. I remember watching that for the first time. I was probably like 12, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, I guess this is what we're watching.
$10.
Oh man.
Yeah, Rob Schneider went off the deep end a little bit, huh?
No, dude. I respect what he's doing right now. Like the anti-vax stuff was a little too far, but
That's
like
yeah, that's
speaking up past that, like I mean, he doesn't. And the funny thing is, a lot of people think anti-vaxxers are crazy, but like
I think it
most
depends
of
on
them
your
are
I think
back
it
in the
depends
day.
on your I think it depends on your degree of anti-vaxxer status.
Well, you know, with what? Yeah. So with thoughts gone. Um, so anti-vaxxers, like back in the day, yeah, crazy. But with everything going on today, like I mean, all the heavy metals, you know, that are linked to all kinds of
But
damaging
that
problems. And I'm not saying vaccines are bad. Like what I always tell people, I'm like, listen, if you're vaccinating your children, get them on an alternative schedule, meaning you don't give them 18 shots in one fucking arm at a time. You spread it out because the thing is, like, there are damaging things within, but if you spread them out, the human body is amazing.
yeah, it
It's
really is.
amazing how it works.
Well,
So
and then you
therefore,
have
spread the vaccines out, and you don't have any really crazy issues.
Well, and then you have candidates like RFK, who spent the vast majority of his professional life, fighting pharmaceutical companies from using harmful ingredients in certain vaccines. And
Right.
his perspective is very much the same as mine. Is like, oh, I'm so not against vaccines, but I think we probably have too many, and I don't think there's enough oversight.
And I'm the exact same way when it comes to that. We have too many vaccines. I'm okay with the majority of them, but like when it comes to chickenpox, I'm
Yeah,
just like,
I'm
son,
sorry.
like chickenpox really, like as a kid, that's like the least scary thing. I was like, as an adult, it's the fucking scariest thing ever. I haven't had chickenpox. My kids
Well,
get
because
chickenpox, I have to
I
leave.
well, I think the logic is that if you can forego the chickenpox virus when you're young, you are not at risk for shingles. So I kind of get it, but I
Oh,
would want
and see, well, the thing is, you actually do get chickenpox. You just get a low form of it. So therefore,
right,
you
but
are actually prone to getting shingles.
no, 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 no,
Not
no, no, no,
prone.
no, no,
You
no,
don't get
no.
shingles if you haven't had chickenpox.
Right. I think the logic is you also don't get shingles if you develop the immune response before the chickenpox virus spreads throughout your entire body, because what it really is a flare up of that virus, because the
Yeah,
virus
because
doesn't leave your body.
shingles actually comes about with cortisol. Because
Yes.
cortisol levels raise up, then shingles can happen. Unfortunately, we've got to cut short. I got yelled at.
You
So
got you got to go. Okay, don't worry. We'll be back next week. We're on Sundays now, and we will have. There's a lot of cool stuff coming in 2024. So we will sign off for tonight. As always, we didn't do a live one this night. But if you would like to contribute to the conversation, leave a comment. Try to be respectful. But if you're not, it'll still be there. We'll just ignore it. Or actually, he'll probably give you a witty retort,
or try to.
or try
But
to.
either way, thanks for hanging out, guys. Peace.
Get your Stevie Wicks candles now. Fuck off and do something else.